Hello, everyone, and happy WikiTree Day. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm doing good.
Excellent.
I'm on Pacific time, so it's not too late here.
Ah, yes, because your room is a lot brighter than mine. It's pretty dark here now, and I'm wearing my black Hacktoberfest T-shirt, so that doesn't help any.
Yeah.
Like a floating head. Oh well. But so I'm hoping everyone's having a great WikiTree Day. There's been wonderful presentations all day long, and all of these presentations will be available on YouTube indefinitely. The WikiTree Symposium sessions are good for 30 days, and then they go away. So make sure you watch those. But for this hour, we get to spend the hour with Rob Pavey, and he's going to tell us all about the WikiTree Sourcer and what's new in that. And I'm going to disappear for a little bit and grab a little bit of supper, but I'll be here to help you out.
Right, I'm going to share a screen. I want to share a whole screen, and this one here. Okay, move this over here.
There we go. I see Douglas Walter or Walter Douglas.
It's actually one of your people.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of mine.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So
if you have any questions for Rob throughout, please put them in the chat. Start with a Q so that I can see them, and I will star them, and we'll come back to them as you see. I'm going to hide myself while I go grab something, and take it away, Rob.
Okay, I'll see you again later at the end, Greg.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this presentation, I'm going to focus on WikiTree Sourcer and what's new with it. I don't really have time to go over everything that's in WikiTree Sourcer. So, but just a brief intro, WikiTree Sourcer is a browser extension, and the purpose of it is to be able to find sources and cite them on WikiTree. If you haven't used it before, a good place to start is the YouTube intro video. So to step back, I'm using a free WikiTree free space page for this, which we're looking at here, to drive this presentation. So you can actually follow along or look back at it later. This is the URL up here. So it's just the space is WikiTree Sourcer, WikiTree Day 2023. So if you go to that, you can get to this intro video. There's also the Sourcer free space page, which is the best place to start for all things to do with Sourcer. And on that page, it'll let you, sorry, I'm just getting distracted by something on my screen. It tells you how to install for Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. And there's a user guide and so on. So hopefully most of you have used Sourcer before and know the basics. So what I'm going to focus on first is what's new. And I was just going to mention Sourcer was first released in August 2021. So that's over 2 years ago. And before that, I worked on the WikiTree AGC extension, which was released 3.5 years ago. But in the last 6 months, I've added a bunch of new sites. There's actually a page that lists all the sites, which you can click on here to see. This just goes through all the sites that are supported. And some of them have some documentation links and examples. But now I'm just going to focus on the new ones. So one new one that I added was something that people have been asking for a while, which is Canada census records, and actually lots of other Canada documents. So to look at that, we can go to an example Canadian profile, which is actually one of Greg's that he shared with me. So if I click on the Sourcer icon, which is this one in square brackets here, it'll show you down here, you can see you can now search Library and Archives Canada. There's a submenu if you want to do things in more detail. you can either search census records, or they have a lot of other collections, all sorts of military and such like. Or you can search a specific census. Or if you just click on this, it actually defaults for this site to just searching the censuses. So I can do that for this one. And it doesn't get any results, but you can modify the search. And the reason it's not getting any results is because the middle names don't match. One of the things with adding new sites to Sourcer is every genealogy site's different, the search works differently, and so on. I mean, I might eventually add an option to say don't use middle names when you search Library and Archives Canada for censuses. But anyway, now I've removed that and it gets a few different matches. And I can click on one of those. So this is a census, population census in Canada in 1921. And you can see there's a bunch of data on here. There's the brief information and all the details. And the way Sourcer works is it can extract all this information. So when I click on here, I can build either an inline citation, a narrative sentence with an inline citation, or I can build a source citation. I'm going to build a narrative. And I realize I've lost my little page I was going to use as an example. So I have a little scratch page here I'm going to use just to show you the results. So here's my 1921 census. And if I preview it, you can see that this is the narrative sentence it generates. And then it's using an inline citation, which comes down here. I should mention, well, if you've used Sourcer before, you know there's all sorts of options for how this should be formatted. You can have it look more like a traditional Chicago format or evidence explained format, or the default is it does a little bit more formatting to put in breaks and so on. So that's a basic census citation from WikiTree. Actually, I realized I'm not showing the YouTube page at the moment, so I can't see any comments people are putting up. So I will open that over on this other screen, just so I can see if anyone. Oh. Now I have to mute that. Okay, mute that. So I can now see comments that people are writing. I will ask, it's probably easiest if people leave questions to the end, as I am going to have a Q&A session. But I just wanted to check that people aren't saying, it's not working, I can't see anything. But it doesn't seem like it. Okay, so back to Library and Archives Canada. So that was an example Canada profile. So the one thing, maybe this is a preview to the tips and tricks that I'm going to show later, but Greg also shared this profile of someone who lived in Canada. But if you look at the birth and death, they were actually born and died in the United States, even though they lived most of their life in Canada. And Greg was wondering why, when he brought up the Sourcer menu, Library and Archives Canada didn't show up. Well, that's because Sourcer tries to be smart and filter these lists to just show sites that might apply to this person. But you can work around that by going show all search sites. And you can see it's being filtered by the dates that this person lived and the countries they lived in. And it thinks they only lived in the United States. You can turn off the filtering. And then that would let you search for Library and Archives Canada for that person. Another thing, so as I say, every site's different. It takes me between like 3 days and 2 weeks to add a support for a new site. One weird thing about Library and Archives Canada is they're currently in the process of moving from one website to a design to a new one. So, for example, it used to look like this, all the records on Library and Archives Canada. So really, we want to cite the new site, citations to go to the new site. So I didn't want to implement support for both of them. You can see up here it says we're in transition. This is going to go away basically and then be transferred. But I wanted to help people do that transition because a lot of people have WikiTree profiles with links to these old records. So what I did was I added a thing to say search the new LAC site for this same record, which in this case works pretty well. It just finds exactly the same record on the new Library and Archives Canada site, and then you can go there and you can create your citation. Okay, so that's Library and Archives Canada. I'm not going to go through every new site I added because that would take up all the time. But I added a bunch of book type things like Google Books, Hathi Trust, which has a lot of books, Internet Archive also has a lot of free books, JSTOR has books and journals. I'll briefly show Google Books. So here's an example of Google Book. I only implemented it for the new Google Books. There's still the classic Google Books, but I decided to put the effort into focusing on the new Google Books. So you can build a citation, a narrative. Narrative doesn't have a lot of detail because basically all you're going to say is that they were mentioned in a book as a person. So you don't necessarily need to do a citation, but I can show you what that looks like. So I'll say this person was mentioned in a book, preview it, and I'll put the name of the book in italics, and then I'll do a citation. So in that case, the book, I wasn't on a particular page of the book. What took a while to get working for this site was you can bring up a book, you can scroll through to some particular page. So here you can see we're on page 7. And actually it ended up being a lot of work to be able to put page 7 into the citation, because this is actually a separate page viewer, which is what's called an iframe. But I did eventually get it working, and hopefully if I do build narrative with citation and replace this one and do a preview, you can see it now says page 7 here in the citation, and the link it's put in is actually pointing to page 7 here. So what it does when you create a citation on Google Books is it will, I think it's this thing here. Yeah, so it uses these sharing links that Google suggests to link to, which is like a permalink to that. There are various options, but I won't go into all of them now. So hopefully those kind of new sites are useful. Wikipedia is another example that was requested. There's different ways people cite Wikipedia. Sometimes they actually create like a traditional citation, and sometimes they just want to reference Wikipedia in the biography. So here's a Wikipedia page. You can now build a citation, or you can just build a WikiTree link. If I build a narrative with a citation, I'll just say this person was mentioned in a Wikipedia page, so I'm just showing narrative examples just because they have the most stuff in them, but a lot of the time with Wikipedia, you wouldn't really bother with the narrative. You just say, create a source citation or an inline citation. And there's a lot of different options for how to format this, because on the help sources page, there's one way it shows the site Wikipedia. The England project has a slightly different way. Basically, they're all modeled on the Chicago model, but it's a question of where the link goes. And if you look at this, you can see this is actually using a permalink, which is citing a current version of that page. So if I click on this link here, it actually opens. You can see this stuff here at the top. It shows you're going to a specific version. It's a permanent link to that version. You don't have to do that. If I look at the WikiTree options, citation, Wikipedia, so it gives you like 5 different choices for how you want the link to be. It could be a special WikiTree Wikipedia link in double brackets, or a standard external link, permalink, or visible URLs. I mentioned sometimes you want to just cite the Wikipedia page. You don't want a full citation. You just want to mention it. And I think I added a thing to build a WikiTree link, and this is the way typically the Notables project, for example, would cite Wikipedia. They wouldn't do that kind of thing. They'd just put something like see also, and then this is the link that the sourcer generated. And when you preview it, it looks like see also Wikipedia. And that's using the special Wikipedia link, which is double brackets. Yeah, it's a bit like a free space link, but specific for WikiTree, Wikipedia. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of different window tabs open here. I'm sure that's a problem we all suffer from. Okay, so I'll briefly go over the other ones I added to keep track of time here. I added support for the Cornwall Online Parish Clerk, which is an English record. I'm probably not going to add support for every single county in England, but Cornwall was a useful one because a lot of Cornish records aren't available on Family Search or Ancestry. I added support for 2 Netherlands sites, WikiTree and Open Archives. And they actually have a lot of records in common, so you can actually search from. I can do a quick example. So here's a record on WikiTree for Gerrit J, and we know who his parents were. So as well as creating a citation, you can search for it. This is a feature of Sourcer. You can always search from one record to other records. Because of the way Sourcer works, it tries to understand the data, not just put it into a table, but understand what all these fields mean, and then it can use that to search for another site. So one of the options is to search Open Archives for the same record. And in that case, it just finds this record. So you can find exactly the same one on a different site. As something I try to implement for various things like censuses between Ancestry and Family Search. Okay, so I also added support for the England or UK probate search and a bunch of Irish ones. Probate search is an interesting example, just as an example of how every site's so different. So this is one of my relatives. If I want to find their will on probate search, you can see it found a document, but you can see that there's actually no transcription at all on probate search for most of these documents. So how can I create a citation for that? Well, the solution I ended up with was you say build a citation, but then it says it brings up a form and you can transcribe various bits of data from the page into the form and then build a citation. So it's just another way of doing things that I added in order to support that site. Okay, that's probably enough on the new sites. I'm going to move on to other features and improvements that I added in the last 6 months. Here's a minor one. here's an example Ancestry record. Now, when I bring up the page, there's a little title here at the top, which didn't used to be there, but there's also a new busy indicator. So if I build a narrative, you can see while it's fetching documents, it's got that busy thing. And the reason I added this is, people get so used to using Sourcer, they just say build citation, and then switch tabs, paste it into the profile. And a lot of people were finding that they were accidentally pasting in the previous one, because if you switch tabs, it breaks off what Sourcer was doing. So part of the fix for that is I also realized I could just clear the clipboard as soon as you start doing it. So that kind of gets rid of pasting in the wrong citation. But also the idea was that having this busy thing, which happens more if you like using something that hasn't already cached. So if I go to this 1871 census, you can see it's thinking about it a bit there. So those are just some user interface changes. Hopefully we'll avoid people accidentally using the wrong citation. So I also added a feature which is similar to something that's in the WikiTree browser extension, which is to be able to save off your profile, your option settings. So this, to the options page. This is the WikiTree Sourcer options page. And there's hundreds of settings, and it's useful to, if you want to experiment with some settings, you might want to save off your other ones, or you might want to say, hey, I've changed all my settings so much that I want to go back to the defaults and see what that's like. So I did this menu, this burger menu up here, this little 3 lines. You click on that, it brings up this tools menu, and you can export the options to a file. You can import the options from a file, and you can reset. So you might want to export your options off to a saved file as a backup, and then reset the options to defaults. Try that out. And if you don't like it, you can import your old options, or you could export them and save the options file, send the options file to a friend. Say, these are the options I'm using. Or you could say, these are the options I want to use when I'm working on this project, and save them to a file. But I want a different set of options I want to use when I'm working on a different project. So you could save just on your machine a few different presets and then import them to switch between them. And the last thing I was going to mention is a new feature. This was actually something added in July, so a lot of you may have already played with this, but the build all citations feature in Family Search. There's a link to documentation on it here. As an example, this is a Family Search profile which has 10 different sources. You don't have to be on the sources page. And then you can do build all citations. It thinks about it a bit, builds a bunch of citations. And if I go to my scratch page here, just reset it, you can then paste here. And this has generated this whole biography and census pages and so on. So this underlying it is there's a ton of different options that affect all this. There's the household table options. I have it set to automatically generate household tables within the ref. So that's why it did that, because it's generating a bunch of narratives when I did build all citations. Because this is set, it also generated the tables. The options for build all citations, I may actually move these because it's a bit non-intuitive that they're under add merge. But here there's a whole bunch of options, like whether you want to generate narrative or inline citations or source citations. And then beyond that, you can get it so that it will automatically run this when you do add person. You can get it to here automatically include all the source citations. So you kind of have all these options that are kind of chained. Now when you do save person in family search, it's going to automatically go, if you've got that checked, and do build all citations. And then when it does the build all citations, if you've got that automatically generate tables thing, it's going to manage tables. So there's a lot of different things. You can get it to a ton of stuff in one click, basically. Yeah, so if you want to know more about build all citations, there's a documentation link here, or you can find it via the user guide. So I think I'm doing okay for time. I want to leave some time for questions, but okay, so I saw there was a question here. I haven't really been watching, but let's see. There's a question, is it possible to have build all citations from an Ancestry profile? And it is possible. And I tried to write the code for it to be so that I can share as much code as possible, but I haven't implemented it yet. Partly, I don't want to push my luck too much with Ancestry, in that they might decide it's like violating their terms and conditions if an extension does too much at once. So if you're on an Ancestry profile and it goes through every source on that Ancestry profile, and then goes to try and build a table for every census, so it goes and fetches every other person, record for every person in that census, which it needs to do on Ancestry, it could end up fetching hundreds of records, which might upset Ancestry. So I'm treading carefully there, but it might be something I work on eventually. So I was going to move on next to tips and tricks. One thing that I don't mention a lot in the intro video that I mentioned, I linked to at the top of this page, is this way the search menus work. So I'll just bring up an example profile to test with. So when you bring up the search menu, the WikiTree sourcer menu, the first thing on the menu is always the search. And as I've added more and more sites, this gets bigger and bigger. So there are a bunch of options to control this. You can control which sites show up here and which ones only show up on this other menu. So let's look at the options page here. It's under the search tab and the general. So currently I've got it set to show 16 different ones. So I could change that to just show, say, 5. And let's go back to the profile. Now when I bring up this menu, you only see the first 5 items. And you can edit the priorities of every site to show which ones come up first, which would affect which ones come up out of the 5. You can still click on show all search sites, and it will show all the ones that are not being filtered out. So if I turn off all filtering back, this shows every single site that you can search. It gets a bit more complicated even than that. You might want to say, I actually want a really simple menu when I use the sourcer menu. So I don't want any search menus other than the one that brings up the submenu. So if you want a really nice small sourcer menu, you can do that. And then if you want to search a site, it will go to this submenu, which can be filtered by the dates that this profile covers and the countries that this profile covers. And it remembers that setting. Now that I turn that back on, if I bring it up now and go here, it remembers which filters you've got set. So I don't really like that. I'm going to stick with my 16. But for example, you might say, well, I don't actually have a subscription to Ancestry, so I don't want it to show up on the front menu. So you can just put 0 as the priority. And you can say, I don't even want it on the submenu. And then if I go here, you can see it doesn't show search Ancestry anymore. I could do the same for any of these. Like if you don't have a Find My Past subscription, you can get rid of that. And because I said I didn't even know on this, the submenu, it's not even showing up there now. I'm going to set that back while I remember, so I don't wonder where my search Ancestry went. There's a bunch of other things I think I wanted to show. The priority, the maximum menu items. I guess that's pretty much it. So search is one of the things that people don't immediately realize that Saucer does. Searching, I use it all the time because it basically, one of my main goals with Saucer is to save you typing. So yeah, you could open Ancestry and type in the search for this person, but it's so much easier to just say search Ancestry. And then it also lets you do some kind of specific things, like I want to search a particular collection in Ancestry. So I want to find this person in the 1861 census, and this is all based on their lifetime, what records, collections would be available. So I can say search Ancestry for the 1861 census for this person. It does a search. This is the right one. He happened to be in Cheltenham at that time. And then there's also this feature. Let's see if I can find that on Family Search. The same exact record in the same 1861 census. And in this case, it finds that same one in Cheltenham, born in Plymouth, which can be surprisingly useful, because if I was on this person and I just said search, Family Search for that same, oh, sorry, wrong thing, specific collection, 1861, the Family Search just doesn't work as well easily. So this finds a completely different William Pavey, which is not the one I want. And it's actually quite hard to find the one I want through just through searching Family Search. But if I search Ancestry first and then Family Search, it finds the right person. So that's a tip that can be pretty useful. So that's basically what I was showing here. So auto-generation of household tables, I mentioned a bit, sorry, I'm just looking at the questions now. There's people, someone's asking about Australian cemeteries. I do have a list of enhancements that have been requested. Let me step back now and show that. So if we go to the WikiTree Saucer page, there's these links along the top, and one of them is the wish list enhancement requests. And you can add a comment on this page. So these are all the sites that have been requested. And then if you add a comment on the bottom of the page, I'll look into it and add any requests to this list. But you can see there's a lot of, there's a big backlog. There must be thousands of sites that people would like supported. And I'm never going to get to all of them. That's one of the reasons this is an open source project. And if I go to the supported sites here, which I mentioned, here we go, earlier. Some of these sites that were supported, like Billy and Graves, was implemented by another WikiTreeer, Colin Thompson. And he also implemented the Commonwealth War Graves, and then the Polish records was implemented by Pavey, and newspapers.com, I think, was implemented by Savannah King. So there are other programmers who have contributed to Saucer, and if you're a programmer and you'd like to add support for a specific new site, let me know. So where was I? Back to tips and tricks, household tables. So we were looking at a census here. That's not a very interesting one. Let's look at this one. So there's one with 4 people in. So I can build a citation here. I can also build a household table, or I can set the options so it automatically builds a household table. And you can either do it so the one I showed earlier where the tables show up under the sources line, or you can do it so they show up in the biography. There's a lot of different options. But I'm going to build a citation here, a narrative with a citation. I'm going to go to my scratch page. I'm going to get rid of that stuff. So this is my narrative with citation. I'll preview it. So there's a lot of different options for how these tables are formatted. But often you can see that the table isn't fully transcribed. On Ancestry for that census, they didn't transcribe the status and the occupation, but WikiTree Sourcer knows that those are available in the image, so it puts them in the table so that you can fill them in later. So one cool feature that Ian McCall added to the WikiTree browser extension that I was asking for is there's now in the WBE, there's a thing called the Wiki Table Wizard. So what you actually do is you copy, so I'm going to do Control-C, you go to the WikiTree Table Wizard and paste that in, and now I can edit that table without having to know anything about wiki table syntax. So for example, I could go to the table, look at the image, and see that there's William Pavey, and he was a cabinet maker, and he was married, or was he married? That's pretty hard to read. I'll ignore that for now. But he was a cabinet maker, so let's just add that bit. So you can put in cabinet maker. And I used to do this without using the Wiki Table Wizard, and because of the way you have to bold the row, you have to put like apostrophe, 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 cabinet maker, apostrophe, 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 which was a real pain. Now you don't have to do that. It's all WYSIWYG. And then you can just say generate the table, close it, and then I can paste over the top of that, and you can see it now has cabinet maker in there. So I'm using that all the time now. So yeah, it used to be people would say, I don't like using tables because I don't know how to edit them. But now you don't need to know all this syntax. So one last tip and trick is merge edit. A lot of people, I don't really use this much myself, but some people really love it. And I'm going to be improving it a bit, but I'll show you what we have now. So say, for example, you have a WikiTree profile for this person, and you also have that person on Family Search. Now, this isn't a great example because they're pretty much identical, I think. But if the person on Family Search had more information, like they had the exact birth date and death date, and you didn't have that on WikiTree, what you can do is you can do save person data. So this, you can use this either for this merge edit feature or if you're adding a new person. But this is the case where the person already exists on WikiTree. So there's a ton of sources, collects them all, and then we go back here, and there's a menu item, merge edit from external data. And you can do it either from a citation or from the save person data. So I'm going to do it from this save person data. And what it does is it brings up this thing that's built into WikiTree, which is used for merging two profiles or for getcom imports. And you can see if there's any differences, like there's an example here, which probably isn't one you want to take, where on family search, the external data says the first name is David Ezra, whereas we've got to separate this first name and middle name on family search, on WikiTree rather. But also if the date, if the birth date on WikiTree was just 1887 and on family search it was the exact birth date, you could click on that and replace it. So it's a way of avoiding typing. People don't like copy pasting manually from one profile to another, so it just lets you avoid that. It also optionally will, in this case, it's like added all the tables and everything into the biography. But that is an option here under add merge, merge edit. It's like, I think by default all of these are off, but you can tell it to automatically put stuff into the biography. Okay, I tend to always go faster than I need to in these talks because I don't want to run out of time. So we've got 20 minutes left. I'm gonna switch to questions, but if we run out of questions,
we have some that are, can you hear me, Rob?
Yeah.
Okay. We do have some questions that I started, and I think you've hit some of them, but some you may not have. Lisa asked, is it possible to have a build all citations for an Ancestry profile? You did answer that one.
Yeah.
So. And we don't want Ancestry to issue a cease and desist order, so we'll stick away from that. I'm not sure if you answered this one though. Will Find a Grave ever be able to copy the person data to populate the data fields when building a new profile? Sometimes neither Ancestry nor Family Search have a profile.
Right. I think that does work to some extent. So let me see if I can come up with a search Find a Grave.
It's down.
There
you go.
Find a Grave. So here, this is actually a different William Henry Pavey, but this one will do. So here, there is no saved person data, but you can build a citation. So it's maybe not exactly the same thing.
Right.
And then I'll just hack around here, like add a child.
Okay.
And create a new child. So now you can do set fields from citation data, and it will fill out all the fields from that family search page. So I don't know if that's what it satisfies what people were asking about, but
well, it saves some typing for sure.
Yeah. So the set fields from will work. It'll let you do it from your last saved person data or from the last citation data.
Very cool. Okay, there you go. And a question from Susie, does it work with the New South Wales birth, death, marriage? But you showed where we could see the list and where to add I would like this added.
Yeah, the which birth, deaths, and marriages was that?
New South Wales, so Australia.
Yeah, I have looked at those. Often I look at these sites and I throw up my hands in frustration because of the way the sites are laid out. And they can be hard to search or hard to get the data from. But usually when I persist, I find a way. It would be nice if there was a birth, deaths, and marriages for the whole of Australia rather than having to do
every single state.
A completely different one for every state, but it's on my list, I believe.
That's right. Yeah. Now the good news is that some of these are already in the WikiTree B, but those are just the pure citations. They don't have the full narrative and searching capabilities that the sourcer has. But in the short term, that may be a solution.
Yeah. So WikiTree B can add things a lot faster because WikiTree will, for example, a record like this, it will go through this table and just extract all this information and allow you to put it into a citation.
That's right. Yeah.
But it doesn't interpret the information, so it doesn't know that the age is an age and the name is a name particularly. Whereas there's a lot of features in Sourcer that kind of rely on understanding it. Like
that's right.
Yeah. Search from here, you need to understand it to get a narrative sentence. You need to understand what it means and so on. So there's a bit more work. Right. And then also I implement the search to this site, which can be.
Florian did a presentation earlier today on the WikiTree B, and I sort of compared the two. That the WikiTree B is like a tugboat; it can turn quickly, but you've got an ocean liner here of an extension.
Yeah,
with all the different features and sauna rooms and everything. But
but I have done quite a lot of work on modularizing it with the idea that if people want to contribute as programmers, I've made it very modular, so they don't have to worry about any of the framework stuff. And there's a script they can just run the script. It creates all the files, code.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, they just have to fill out various functions and things.
That's right. Well, I was intending to add the support for the Canadian Census site, and we were back and forth, and I was ready, and it is very well organized. But then I just ran out of time, and other things kept in my way. So thank you for adding that. If anyone here is a programmer and would like to tackle some of those sites on the wish list, I'm sure Rob would be happy. I've noticed when the internet connection is iffy, Sourcer will save to the clipboard rather than just making the citation. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I can't see that one. Can you repeat that one? Sorry.
Sure. Oh, you can't see it on the screen?
Okay.
I'll read it again. I've noticed when the internet connection is iffy, the Sourcer will save to the clipboard rather than just making the citation.
I'm not sure quite what that means. I mean, normally when you create a citation, it does save to the clipboard.
It does save to the clipboard.
So I'm not sure quite what that means.
Okay, Atukla, maybe you can clarify what you mean by that.
Yeah, maybe if the connection's iffy, it never gets to bringing up the success message, like when you.
Oh, maybe.
So if I do build citation here, there's this citation saved to clipboard. It's also saved internally. Maybe that's not coming up, but if it didn't come up, I would be surprised if I actually saved it to the clipboard.
Okay. Let's see. So have you looked at the Australian Cemeteries Index? That's another one that Susie was asking about.
Yeah, that's another one that could be added to the wish list.
Okay. Add her to the wish list. Kay had a question, and I showed this earlier, but if you weren't looking at the right screen, you may not have seen it. For an enhancement request to distinguish the search sites from those that require subscriptions and those that don't.
Right. It could do. I mean, there's also an intermediate one of ones that require accounts but no subscription. A lot like Scotland people, for example, you need to be logged in to use it, but it doesn't cost anything because it's pay as you go. I could do that, but I guess I wonder if it really gains much.
Well, for people like myself who buy subscriptions to everything, I forget sometimes that not everyone has the same access. So that might be something worth.
Oh, for when you're citing it, yeah.
For when you're citing it, if I know that there are other ones that are free, those are the ones I should try for first maybe.
Right.
Murray asks a question: could B pass its output to Sourcer for further processing? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't really know what that would. It doesn't sound like it would work for me. I mean, the reason why it takes more work to implement something for Sourcer is Sourcer has to know for every site what all the names of all the labels are and things. So you'd still have to implement. The bit that B already has is the extract code. And that doesn't really take much time to implement for Saucer. It's the other stuff that takes more time.
Lisa commented about that clipboard. She says, I get the save to clipboard button whenever the searching takes a bit longer.
Oh, so this is probably on Safari.
Oh.
No, very occasionally it happens on other sites. But that's a security feature of the browser, and that especially Safari, they decided that extensions writing to the clipboard was a security risk potentially, unless it was in direct response to a user input. So see, when you click on build citation, that is a user input. But if it spends too long between that and trying to write to the clipboard, it thinks, oh, it wasn't in relation to a user clipboard. So I have special code that detects that error and then brings up an extra layer saying, press this button to save it to the clipboard, and then it's directly in response to a user input.
Okay. I see. Okay. Steven says just add a $sign in the search list if they're paid sites as a suggestion for back to Kay's original request.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah. There is an option to put that in the citation itself.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, I think in the menus, like under citation, ancestry, indicate that a subscription is required. You can say subscription required, $, required subscription, paywall. So that's what actually in the citation itself.
Right. Okay. And Kay has another question. Have you thought about making settings like CMOTS or EE style applying across all types of citations? CMOTS.
Yeah, I've thought about that. So that would be kind of like a preset. So it's something you could create manually. I guess my first step was creating the export input thing of options. So now you could set all your settings the way you'd like them for file, and export that to a file, and you could share it with other people, and they can import it. And you can actually edit that file to be just the option settings that you're interested in, and then other people could import it. But yeah, it's also something that could be built into the options. You could have something to say, like on this page, you could. So a project could have a preset set of options, and give that out to all WikiTree members who are part of that project. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's kind of neat. That's great. I don't see any other questions coming up here. If anyone has any questions, now is the time to add them, because we're about to sign off, because in 7 minutes, we have the WikiTree wrap-up party, which includes some WikiTree stats.
Right.
I don't see any other thing.
Yeah. I mean, I had a few notes here on things I'm working on now.
Oh, that would be great. Yes. Let's end with that.
So they're a little boring, actually.
I'm sure they're not.
I'm working on a couple of things that are actually complicated coding, but not that exciting for people. Like currently the extension on Chrome is using the latest way of building extensions, which is Manifest version 3. But for Firefox and Safari, it still uses Manifest version 2. When I released the Wikipedia support a couple of weeks ago, someone pointed out that they weren't, well, also Google Books, they didn't really like granting permission for their Firefox extension to access Google and Wikipedia pages when they're on them. So, and that's partly because Firefox in MB2, you can't pick and choose which permissions to accept. You have to accept them all. So if I switched it to Manifest version 3, you'd be able to pick and choose which permissions to grant the extension. So that's why I'm looking at that. Another thing, you know, so many people would like new sites added, and as I say, I'm never going to have time to support all of them. So what I'm thinking of is a way to be able to create citations for unsupported sites, in that the idea would be you're on a site that isn't supported, like, well, let me see here. No, that's not a good example.
Yeah,
Well, some sites it's supported.
Western Cemetery site, maybe. I don't know where that.
If I just go to like, I won't go to Wells Fargo, but so I go to GitHub.
Okay.
And I try and build a citation. It says, this isn't supported on the site, but I was thinking I could add an extra link here, extra item that would say build a citation using a template. And it would be a bit like the citation builders that you used on before, Greg, and that would bring up another tab. Then you would be looking at the citation. Look at the citation ideas. Assuming this wasn't supported, it would bring up a tab, and then it would say, ask you for the name. It would ask you kind of what kind of citation it was, like a death record or so on. And then you paste in the bits of information, but it would do it would use all the current WikiTree sources settings to format it the way that sources set up to format it. Because a lot of people, I think, a lot of people using Sourcer to save typing and copy pasting, which you wouldn't do that. But they also they forget, like if they're creating citations manually, it's like, oh, where do I put which bit do I put in italics, or where do I put this?
Yes.
So
that's true.
Do that part for them. It would like consistently format all the citations, even though you had to cut and paste the bits it needed.
Yeah, it's a step in there.
Okay, I don't know how useful that would be, but I think it could be. And the other thing that several people have asked for is when they search WikiTree. So, for example, if you're looking at a family search profile, there's an option to say search WikiTree, see if that person's already on WikiTree.
Oh, nice.
That's always been there, but a lot of people say it's not very useful because it never finds anyone. Because, well, until you delete this bit. Because, and now it finds them.
There we go.
So I'm probably just going to add some more options to say either leave out the birth and death location completely, or just put the country in.
Right. That makes sense.
Fairly near the top of my list.
Great. Well, that's excellent. And I hate to cut you off, but this was a wonderful hour. This is very informative. There are lots of glowing remarks in the comments there that I didn't pull up and show you, but people just are amazed at some of the stuff that you've done that they didn't realize was part of this extension. And it really is a cornerstone. It's changed many lives for the better. Lots of WikiTreeers owe you a huge debt of gratitude. So thank you very much for all your work, Rob. That's been wonderful.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. And so it's now 2 minutes. I have to rush over to the next room because we're doing the WikiTree wrap up. There's some WikiTree stats, and then you'd think that WikiTree Day would be done, but in fact, there are 2 other things after that. There's a WikiTree projects after that in an hour from now, and then the global project presentation is at 10 o'clock Eastern time, so 2 hours hence. But anyways, hope you all had a great WikiTree Day. Join me in 1 minute now for the WikiTree wrap up. Thanks again to Rob. Thanks again to everyone who's been here and joined us, and have a great evening, or tomorrow morning if you're somewhere else.